Hello and welcome back to the IT 360 Advisory Podcast with your host, Jason Ewers. Today, we are joined yet again with our owner, Don Dawson, and we will be discussing innovations in cybersecurity and really focusing in on penetration testing and what it is and why it is important. Don, as always, welcome.
Thanks, Jason.
So
nice to see you again.
You too. So, as I call a lot of prospects and clients, the term penetration testing or pen testing has been becoming more and more popular these days. Why don't you explain what it is and why it's important for someone to get a penetration testing?
Okay. So penetration testing can mean many different things. At its basic level, it's a point in time security check of your network. So a penetration test is a lot of times tools are used to see if it can breach your network from the outside, usually sitting from the internet. But penetration testing can also be done from sitting on your network too. So a lot of companies will run some scanning tools on your network and find out where your vulnerabilities are. They'll develop a report, kick it back out to you, and again, it's a single point in time kind of test. That's at the basic level. I always wonder, why clients want to do this. I understand, it kind of gives you a feeling of, okay, we're secure at this time. And a lot of time it's compliance or some kind of governance that's requiring companies to have the penetration tests. A lot of PCI compliance requires those things. HIPAA compliance requires those things. So for some customers, it's checking a box, right? But at the very basic level, it is, like I said, a point in time check of the network security.
Do we know how often they are requiring a penetration test?
I believe that most of them are yearly.
Okay. That still seems like it doesn't, if it's only one point in time over 365 days, there still seems like there's a lot of vulnerability out there.
Right. But I think what happens is you do the penetration test and then you implement tools after the penetration test or security options after the penetration test that then mitigate anything that you found. And then the penetration test is just there to recheck at a later date to say, are we doing it correctly?
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense.
So, you can, from a penetration test, you can go all the way down the road of having people come in and act like they're a printer guy and get into your network that way. So, the basic ones are running some tools. The really advanced ones are actually having gray hats, as they're called, come into your network and actually try to actively trick your people or your systems into allowing somebody into your system.
So what are they actually looking for then? I mean, what kind of loophole, I don't want to say loopholes, but holes in your network that they're looking for? That would be typical that, a gray hat would look for.
Well, I mean, obviously they're going to look for the same things that bad guys are looking for. How do we get in? Is there a way into your network that then we can either install our own software on and sit there and watch what goes on? Can we exfiltrate data out? How easy is that to happen without anybody noticing? That's a good part of the penetration testing. And then just general security of, is the right software in place that is restricting us from even gathering information on your network? Because information is power. So even if I can't maybe get that Excel file from you, what other information can I gather? Your internal IP address scheme, people within the organization, email address list, things like that, you still want to keep pretty private.
Yeah.
And that's what they do it for.
So let's say a company wants to just see how their network security is with the penetration test. Where does someone go to get this performed?
I mean, there's plenty of companies out there that do that. We obviously could help facilitate that. Typically, we as an IT guys,
dude, you're killing me.
You don't want the same company that is
click your bowl.
Handling your IT as doing your penetration test. Because it's kind of like the fox watching the hen house, right?
Mm-hmm.
You really need to have an impartial party scanning that network and making impartial decisions on whether they can get in or not. So you typically don't want your either internal IT team to do it or your existing service provider to perform that penetration test. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, kind of conflict of interest there a little bit.
It's like your accountant doing a self audit. You just don't allow that to happen, right?
No. I mean, it's we do network discoveries all the time. That's like the first step that I always recommend when we have a potential new client come on board with us. And it really kind of gives us a guide of how the company, just how their network's set up, so we can come up with a plan for them and a recommendation to how to move their IT forward to the next level. I kind of look at penetration testing on a security level, doing that as well. Is that kind of a fair statement to kind of say, this is where you are, this is where you need to be, type of thing?
Right. I mean, you need to know where your baseline is and where your risk is today, so you know what to mitigate. Because without a test or some kind of audit, and which maybe we should call penetration testing audits. I don't know, but penetration testing is the act of trying to actually get into your network and what it looks like. So when we do network audits, we're more getting the speeds and feeds of the network. Penetration testing is actually trying to actively, get into that network and get data out of it.
Okay.
It's a little more, penetration testing can be a little more forceful. It can be, it can actually affect things different than a network audit. A network audit, you're just kind of read only, you're gathering stuff. But a penetration test, you're actually attacking in a roundabout way. So it's not something that you would do without letting the higher ups know and people in charge know that that's taking place.
So, okay.
And especially if you go to the higher level penetration tests where you're actually dressing up as the printer guy and you're going in trying to get these guys to give you access to their server room.
Physically going in.
Physically going in. And that's the kind of the top of the top penetration testing is. You have these gray hats that actually physically go on site. They social engineer their way into your office. They get into your server room. They'll plug a USB drive into your server and then game over, right?
Oh, wow.
So if they can make it that far, then you really have no protection against it.
No, interesting. Yeah. Don, as always, great to have you on. Any last thoughts about penetration testing?
No, as a company, just know what outcome you want from it. Just to do a penetration test doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What are the action items that you plan to do to follow that up with? Because if you have a penetration test and you get the fancy report and it just sits on your desk and you don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're checking a box for compliance, that's one thing. But you have to have a plan on, hey, what are we going to do to mitigate these after, and are we going to mitigate these things?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, Don, great information. Appreciate the time you gave us today. Hey, anybody out there listening to this, if you want more information on penetration testing or anything security related, feel free to reach out to us. Be happy to guide you down that path. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jason.